Hey guys, good afternoon. Again, this is Ron Babbage from Hard Dollar. Thanks a lot for joining us. We're here today talking about balancing scope, cost, and schedule, really, for that matter, with a focus in today's workshop around oil and gas, specifically some topics that we're going to talk about regarding outside influences of factors that are affecting us internally on cost and productivity, how we can kind of more proactively gain an advantage by doing a few things with just pulling out a few of the data components, so we can really kind of put a focus on being proactive, understanding cost and productivity, and then making a change within the organization that is appropriate to whatever those outside circumstances are. So thanks again for joining us today. Again, my name is Ron Babbage. I'm here today with Justin Murphy, and we're going to take you through the workshop. We've got some slides that we're going to go through initially that are going to kind of give an overview of some of the status problems and some of the real-life scenarios that we're going to focus on today. And then we're going to kind of show how we can accommodate some of those things with through the use of Hard Dollar as well. And again, thank you for joining us today. Last month's webinar, I believe, was on our mining workshop, which addressed specific mining issues. This month is on oil and gas. And I think next month is focused around environmental issues. So, and with that, we're at the top of the hour. We'll go ahead and get started. We may have a bunch more people shipping in, because I think at last count there was like 3,000 people that signed up for this webinar. So there still might be some trickling, but this is like a good airline. We're always on time here at the Hard Dollar. So kind of set the stage with the to kind of open up. I think the message of today's webinar is really around how do we deal with outside circumstances and volatility to lower risks based on things that include market demand that affect production changes, and then really all of the kind of the factors that drive all the dynamics in production costs, both for labor, materials, and other equipment costs as well too. So how do we kind of refactor the internal costs based on outside circumstances? So we go to the next slide. Market fluctuation, of course, on energy prices have been kind of all over the map, even though we've been kind of increasing steadily in most areas. The point here, I think, is that there has been, obviously, in the last several years and projected forward, some pretty significant fluctuations in energy prices and the things that constitute and drive those dynamics. So our goal for our workshop today is kind of, let's pick a few of the things that we can control, get those things under wrap, and then based on the outside circumstances, make internal adjustments and hopefully be a lot more profitable for it. So if we go to the next slide, I want to give you a couple examples. So from an internal perspective, we're trying to manage resources, labor, material, equipment, and overhead. Meanwhile, outside of our world, there are things that are happening like labor shortages, specifically shareholder expectations in some markets, and in fact in most, are always increasing, especially when we have high cash fluctuations where the shareholder expectations are great. Now that we're this profitable and now we've got all this extra cash, what are you guys going to do with it and be productive with it? How will you spend it? How will we put projects into place that support our current equity position? What our supply and demand is on the outside to drive prices up, weather conditions, and then government policies, just for a few. And then all of those things kind of have a baseline of how those things affect cost on the bottom. So for today, we're going to kind of see how does the outside stuff impact the inside stuff that we manage on a project, take that under consideration, and then make some specific adjustments accordingly and show how we kind of get visibility. Let's go to the next slide. And while outside circumstances change, internally, traditionally, there's a lot of assumptions that go on, and it varies from company to company and vertical to vertical, but we may think about a definitive cost model or a definitive budget that varies from a 5% variance to a 10% variance. But at the end of the day, there's some things that may drive that much higher: changes to fiscal and government policies, labor shortages. The example I just used a second ago, the rise in corporate cash holdings and shareholder expectations, tightened regulatory environments, 1 to 100 even black swan year weather events that are kind of unplanned, but now we've got to kind of make adjustments for those. So again, how do we deal with those things as we learn about those things? How do we make adjustments? So we go to the next slide. Kind of give one example, just even from last year, year over year, ending June 2011, crude oil prices went up 45%, and we may, in any given set of 45 projects or 450 projects, we may have an impact, obviously, on equipment and the cost to run that equipment strictly by, if we just focus in on crude oil for a second and what that does to our production costs. How do we make adjustments internally for that? How do we see the impact of that? How do we accommodate for the escalation of those changes? Go to the next slide. So kind of give you another example that we're going to focus on today, political strikes freezing projects in Egypt in 2011, thousands of projects struck in Nasser City, stopping gas exports to Israel, Kazakhstan, Argentina, and in Africa. Just kind of an ongoing, perpetual of what happens when we get labor shortages, and they happen for a variety of reasons, but how do we make adjustments for that, and how do we kind of create a much more visible and a much more accurate outcome on our projections when we're aware of these types of things. We're going to go over that today as well. On project planning, on outside conditions, escalation factors to 1/3 of the labor. So one of the examples we're going to look at today is taking a specific escalation factor, knowing that our labor force is going to be reduced by 1/3 of what it was, and increasing our overall labor expected cost, not the hours, but the cost, because our hours will be pretty close to our original plan, but taking an increased escalation cost, understanding that we're going to have to pay a lot more for those resources now and get those things done in a different time frame. And then if we go to the next slide, this is really a pretty good average. Hopefully it's not an average for everybody, but from an average from the D&B Energy Study, 20% to 35% cost overrun on new rig projects, average cost overrun 35%, average delay from plan 7 months, pretty significant. And that 35% is much more drastic, of course, than the expected 5 to 10 definitive that we've got on a plan. Not even close. Floating production storage and offloading projects, average cost overrun 20 to 30%, and then long-term consequential effects to managing those parties overall. Next slide. Really just talking about risk a little bit. As projects become more complex and visible because of an issue, historically performance management has been outsourced, and we really have more risk the less that we have to control in terms of how we're managing the project, right? So less risk, more control, more risk, less control. Let's go to the next slide. And then, so what's stopping us? That's great, and there's a lot of truth to all of that, but how do we, what really is the root cause analysis of where we're having issues? Those issues come from a bunch of stuff. A bunch of stuff is, number one, is a delay in reporting data. We don't seem to have the data that we need, right, to make critical decisions, because, man, if I knew about it, I'd make the change. It's not accurate. The inaccuracy of the data that I'm getting is coming from an outside source, or it's not getting to me in time, and I can't make those decisions because I don't have the data I need. The super common one here is the summary of detail and misaligned data. So while my ERP system is awesome, and I'm using my ERP system to help me out with maybe actual costs from an accounting perspective, the level of detail is just not there. I'm not at the activity level. I'm at a different language from account code to phase code to activity level ID, and I need to get that stuff lined up. And then lastly is ERP is void of productivity and EV. Maybe I'm relying way too heavily on the ERP side, which there is no such thing as the productivity bucket or productivity button, that I want to kind of reference in the ERP system to get that done. And then that affects all the things on the left, my communication with, if I'm the owner, how I'm receiving things from the EPCM, how I'm receiving things from the contractor, and we're just misaligned, the three entities there, in terms of getting a common system of record that's going to provide all that stuff, in a regular way. So we go to the next slide. So if in a perfect world, what we want to do is we kind of want to line all this stuff up. So we take the design takeoff, where our quantities are actually coming from, building out an estimate that it makes sense, as close to accurate, and perpetually kind of changes when those outside entity changes happen, making sure that we're dialed into the schedule, so our start and finish dates are all not only being presented in a way that line up originally with our plan, but how they change as life changes out there with the project cycles. How progress is kind of being updated and measured at the right level, not at too deep a level, but not at a too high of level, but at the right level for the kind of activities that we're doing. And then lastly, making sure that we are dialed in 100% with the ERP system, so that not only are we sending budgets, but we're also receiving actuals and other types of data that are critical to kind of putting this whole thing together in a platform under project cost management. So couple, I think, the rules. So now we understand the problem. Now we said, okay, here's the problem. Here's kind of why we're not getting there. Now let's help kind of fix the problem. So fixing the problem, I think we have to declare a couple things. Number one is we have to declare what is and where is the master data. Where does that stuff live? What we found, at least so far, is that there are some important things that kind of drive this stuff. From an estimate perspective, the budget, activity level, productivity, and resources seem to be best when they're living in the estimate. On the control side, from a control system perspective, progress quantities, progress percent quantities, what's complete, the crew time, change order commitments are often best and measured against the cost model if they're on that side of the fence on the project data side. On the other hand, however, from a system of record perspective, the ERP system really rules the universe for cost codes, account codes, the accruals, cash flows, payroll, and then other master data like material masters as well, and equipment masters. If we go to the next slide now. So then really it's the question of, okay, how much detail we need? Is there not enough detail? Is there more detail? That's my great uncle, Larry Shakespeare. And how much information and how much detail do we have? So the idea behind this is that, if we just jump to the chase here, is finding commonality between the phase code at the operational level and out in the field, and finding commonality into the accounting system. So we have one common thread between all systems, whether it's our phase code, our work package, and our cost codes are this common medium between the ERP system, the progress measurement system, as well as the original cost model, and then into the schedule. So we're all talking on the same language here. And then if we go to the next one. So if we do that, and now this is how we're going to fix it. We can eliminate internal speculation, and we can drive consistent methods of measurement. If we do that, we can also get on the same page on reporting. We can capture detail, but we can also report on summary because we're going out at the lowest level. And it's a lot easier for us to go upwards than it is to go from summary to detail. Going from detail to summary is easy. Opening up progress to vendor input so that, if I'm the owner, I can actually start easily receiving contractor updates and EPCM updates from the field. Leveraging the schedule for true EVM performance. This is critical. If we're not dialed into the schedule perpetually on a live basis, it's near impossible to get our SPI and CPI kind of in sync with how we understand our current performance when there's so many changes going on all the time. And then lastly, it's just a no-brainer, standardizing the work breakdown structure so we're consistent, and we can use that data, which I haven't mentioned yet, for historical reference. And then if we go to the next one, I think this probably is one of the most important things here, which is, traditionally we always think about the people that use the data as the estimator or project controls and field data, but every time we meet with a variety of people, we're always talking with the CFO controller for the same type of data. We're talking to procurement, we're talking to scheduling and planning, and then alternate roles, owner, contractor, EPCM. So that same data, the cost and productivity, I think the meaningful part of this is that we need to present this in a way that it's available to everybody. I'll go to the next one. In a way that when we look at doing a whole kind of blueprint here to kind of support my point earlier, that on the estimating side on the left, we have kind of all the components, the progress side in the middle, as well as history, and then the far right-hand side, the ERP, where those masters live, material, inventory, equipment, maintenance, HR, and how that translates itself over and compares itself to the estimating side. And then, so we're going to go through 3 scenarios real quick. This is kind of the punchline. How do we do this? Like, what can we do? So let's take real-life examples and kind of go through 3, and then we'll take some questions along the way and kind of show you how we approach it. Number 1 scenario is an anticipated labor shortage from a strike. So we're going to kind of go through that and show what we can do from a changes perspective to accommodate that. Scenario 2 is, what if we had a condensed scope from a delayed production that caused us to keep kind of almost the same number of hours, right, because the work's not going to change, but because of that, we need to put on a bunch of overtime, plus we got to increase our crew size as well as make a bunch of shift arrangements to make sure that this stuff happens on time, on plan, without changing the scope. And then lastly, how do we get daily progress indicators of CPI variances when things are off? And how do we understand kind of really where we're at in that process? So those are the 3 we're going to kind of focus on today. And with that, I'm going to put it into action with Justin. And take it away, Justin.
Thanks, Ron. For this first scenario, we're going to review the labor shortage. So I'm going to jump over into hard dollar real quick. we're currently looking at our cost breakdown structure for a plant shutdown. And what I'm going to do real quick is create a dependent cost item based on our direct cost for the job. I'm going to call this labor shortage. With that dependent cost item created, I'm then going to specify the period where I think that I need to account for. So let's say, you know, June, July of 2012 is my labor shortage period. So my to date or from date is going to be 6/1/2012 to 7/31/2012. Right, we have the period defined, but as you can see on the right side, we're not seeing any subject cost being generated. That's because we haven't integrated or we haven't brought back all the start and finish dates for each of our cost items. So as I go into my Primavera schedule, I can see the same work breakdown, the same hierarchy that I've defined on my hard dollar estimate. I'm going to quickly expand out this schedule so we can see all of our level 4 items. And you'll quickly notice that this particular estimate schedule has not been hasn't been synced. There hasn't been a critical path defined. What I'm going to do real quick is just link all these activities together. Quickly reschedule, so we define that path, and essentially a start and finish date, or finish to start date for each of our activities. Now back on the hard dollar side, now that we've defined what that critical path is, I can now bring all those start and finish dates back into hard dollar. As it's updating for each activity scheduled, it's bringing in those start and finish, early start, early finish, late start, late finish dates. So that'll help calculate that labor shortage.
Awesome.
This particular schedule has over 1,000 activities, so it will take 1 second, a little bit longer than 1 second.
There was a question while we're waiting for the update.
Yeah.
Integration with Primavera versus Microsoft Project. Does hard dollar integrate with Microsoft Project as well as Primavera?
Yes, it does. So you can integrate with either application. In addition, sometimes in the beginning, you just need to specify, start and finish dates, and for your cash flow, so you can manually put in your numbers as well.
Okay, great.
So now we can see when I go back into my labor shortage, when we look at that cost breakdown, we can see based on that scheduling information brought back between June 1st and July 31st, there's 451,000 cost that's broken up between our labor, equipment, down to our fees. Now I can apply that 16% factor on top of my total labor cost to generate an additional, just under $66,000 to help account for that shortage during June and July. Now back on the cost breakdown, we can see based on that period, based on the items that are falling under June and July, we're going to generate just under $66,000 to help accommodate that shortage.
Very good. All right.
So in this second scenario, we need to account for, possible, a strike, an activity has been set to, take place over a few days, a few weeks, but due to the strike, you couldn't work. So as I expand out my cost breakdown here, I'm going to go into a particular activity, possibly on my shutdown. Maybe this item 1.1.2.11, removal of packing from the tower. What I'm going to do is drill in this particular cost item And here we can review the details, the productivity, the crews that are assigned. We can see that a Boilermaker crew has been assigned to this particular task, how that crew is comprised, and what our productivity variables are on the left. As kind of Ron alluded to earlier, when we have that strike, we need to catch up, so our shift arrangements are going to change, affecting how we're going to pay our employees. So the first thing I'm going to do is change our wage scale. So presently, we almost have a 60-40 split between standard and overtime. Well, for this instance, I'm going to switch everything to, time and a half. To essentially play catch up. In addition, we need to double our crew size. So I'm going to go from 8 to 16. Right? You might have picked up that update. Our unit cost and total cost has increased. But with that quick change, what we can do is review our PBS changes log. And as I can quickly see, based on that change, we have just under $30,500 to accommodate that additional crew size. So we have an eyes-on cost on if we do have that shutdown and we do need to increase our crew size and change the shift arrangement from standard time to overtime to double time, we have an audit log to capture all those changes.
Very good. Hey, another question, I think, around that as it relates. It says, we have multiple projects throughout North and South America. Can HD calculate different labor rates based on shift arrangements and location as well?
That's a great question. What I'll do real quick is go back into that item we were reviewing. And, we're looking at this Boilermaker crew. And it's comprised of 4 different resources. If I go into this individual resource for the Boilermaker foreman, we can see that this Boilermaker foreman has 3 different wage scales, right? That contribute to your different shift arrangements, but more importantly, a setup area where you can define how this Boilermaker foreman, as you can see in this particular case, is assigned to a geographic area Southwest and wage zone ABC.
Awesome. Okay. Hey, thanks for the questions, by the way. There's one other that's on this topic. I just wanted to stick it in here while we're on the topic. It says, typically, in my estimate, I have a standard shift arrangement of 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. I currently have difficulties changing certain items to a different arrangement, let's say 12 hours a day.
Sure.
Can each detailed activity be driven by a different shift arrangement in HD?
Yes. So in this current screen, we can see that this Boilermaker crew is working, essentially 10 hours a day, doing 2 shifts per day, 7 days a week. So I could change this one. Maybe instead of 2 shifts a day, we're going to do 3 shifts a day. We're going to do 12 hours a shift. So yes, you can. Each cost item you can choose how you want to drive.
Okay.
Or to kind of do it at a global level, you can set 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's really up to you.
Yes. Hey, thanks again for the question. Actually, 2 more since we're on this topic.
Yeah.
Does HD integrate with Primavera Enterprise?
Primavera Enterprise portfolio?
It says Enterprise. I don't think it's the Star Trek Enterprise. I think it's a Enterprise.
Yeah, I believe they're referring to.
Yes, I believe so.
Portfolio Enterprise. Yes.
I believe as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then one more quick since we're on the screen. What other currency options? And again, thanks for the question. What other currency options can you select?
In our foundation setup, there's an entire area where you can specify your currencies. In this particular job, I just have one for US and Canadian dollar. We can go in and define as many as needed. So as you're maybe taking in different pieces of work from various regions, you might want to specify their currency. And for particular items, you can interchange which currency you want to use to drive that cost.
Yeah.
So the hard dollar supports being able to estimate in multiple currencies.
I'm not big on the sales schlocky stuff, but this is one of my favorite features, because the fact that the currency does go down to the activity level, so that you can have 200 activities in one currency and 800 activities in another currency, or vice versa, or whatever. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
Okay. All right. So the last scenario, tying your time into this and kind of measuring your cost variances, is being able to track your progress. So what I'm going to do is, as we're looking at our cost breakdown structure, we're going to leverage the same hierarchy to track daily progress. So I'm going to switch tabs here, go to my job tracking, and you'll notice same set of columns, or same set of items, but the columns are a little different. They're more centered around earned value. What's planned, what's earned, what's your actuals, what's your variances. What I'm going to do real quick is bring in some progress information. For the first couple activities. So we can see for items 1.1.1 through 0.4, I brought in some costs, and we can easily see for a few of these items we're doing okay, and for some of them we're not doing okay, right? In particular, for the mobilization of equipment and the setup of the site equipment, we're kind of over on those items, and we need further investigation. So what we can do is drill into mobilization of equipment, for example, and kind of look at our productivity. Based on what we had estimated, we had planned on doing essentially 5%, or 0.05 of that equipment per hour, and our productivity is coming in at 0.04. Based on the man hours, we can see, we're over by almost 30%, and 12%, and our overall cost by 5%. So why is this useful? Now we can make updated forecasts on what we're going to end up at. So what I can do first is look at my forecast details, and if we take this first progress measurement, take into account how many units we've completed, how many man hours we've expended, what the actual costs have been, and saying for the estimate at completion, we want to assume our planned production is going to go according to plan. So if it does, we're going to end up just $650 over on this particular task. That might be good, that might not be good, but at least it gives you an idea of what the cost might be. Now, another way of looking at this is to change my forecast method to that latest as-built. So perhaps for this 25% complete, with the man hours expended, with the actual cost accounted for the remainder, 50%, 75%, 100%, this productivity is going to carry forward. And now when I look at my forecast details, we can see that we're going to be over by 2,600, or a variance of 55%. So by being able to capture your progress, your man hours, you're calculating your plan versus earned versus actual, you can make more informed decisions about your forecast based on planned and based on your latest as-builts.
Okay, awesome. Since we just talked about currency real quick, what about UAE, dirham? The currency, as Justin brought it up before, the currency options, we could have 26 different currencies. It really is all use it fine. So we just set up those currency tables in the system. So regardless if you're here, or even if Venus or Mars came up with their own currency, we'd be able to put that in there. So it's whatever locations that we want to put, and then apply it to the project. So irregardless of where it's at, that's how we put it in there, and it works really well. Thanks again for that question. This is an interesting one. Maybe I'll say this one for the end, but why would I use hard dollar instead of MS Project to do cost control? That is an awesome question. Well, I'll tell you what, if MS Project did a killer job on cost control, we wouldn't be around. But I think from a feature perspective, there's just a ton of stuff that we do. Probably most importantly, the one that sticks out in my head, obviously, besides having 150,000 features that we have within the software that measures cost and productivity, is just our calculation of how we're making those baseline assumptions on the estimate, how we're driving all of the what-ifs, and using all the calculations to determine what those costs are on the estimate side. Not only that, but measuring the progress and then the outcomes. So that level of detail is Microsoft Project's awesome, but it doesn't have that kind of level of detail to kind of calculate all that data, all those numbers, and then drive an outcome. So that'd be really the big difference, I think. I mean, there's a million kind of features, but primarily it comes back down to calculating what the assumptions are for the cost base and then measuring that progress along the way. And you want to add anything to that? Okay. One last thing, I'll bring it up now because the question came in on progress. What methods does HD support for bringing progress in? Guessing probably different methods like Excel and timesheets.
Sure. So I guess the way that I showed progress in this scenario was leveraging timesheets, where we're essentially defining which employees and machines are driving the cost of a particular activity. So timesheets is one way. We can do direct entries on any of these items. We can leverage Excel templates to essentially update multiple items simultaneously. And probably the main one is the integrations with accounting and ERP systems, leveraging our API, bringing in those actual costs.
Okay, really good. Here's one on just small tools calculations, which might actually answer kind of the MS Project question as well too. Sometimes we calculate our small tools and supplies based on the total number of man hours in our estimate. Does Hard Dollar provide a way to calculate this additional cost?
Oh, that's a great question.
Thank you.
So kind of similar to what I showed. Yeah, sorry, I'm running out of real estate here. With the labor shortage, we can create another dependent cost item, and we can base it on our man hours. As I click this and I go into the detailed record, we'll just call this description STNS. We can see that the total man hours is instantly calculated. So for this particular estimate, I have just under 12,000 man hours, and now I can just simply put on an add-on component. Do I think it's going to cost maybe $5 in small tools and supplies? And as you can see, that instantly generates another 59,000 under our labor, which would accommodate for that.
Okay. And one last thing.
Yeah.
The last thing, we'll probably have another one, but I noticed that the cost breakdown structure in HD and the work breakdown structure in Primavera had the same hierarchy. Is it possible to determine whether you want to schedule activities at a detail or summary level?
That's another great question. So as we're in the CBS right here, we can see this level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, which was, if I switch back to Primavera, we were seeing the same, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. What we can do on Hard Dollar is, let me switch my view real quick to a scheduling view. I can essentially pick and choose which items or how I want the corresponding schedule to look. So you'll notice the scheduled column, I have each of these activities checkmarked. What I could do is maybe for the pre-shutdown, I don't need to know the details. I just want to essentially send over the resources and the duration that's going to take. I could just simply roll up my schedule to that activity. So on the Primavera side, those 25 items below would be rolled up into this one. So helps manage the schedule a little better.
Awesome. Yeah. Very good. All right.
I'll
flip back over. Yeah. Okay. A couple things to just kind of drive to sum up kind of the bottom of the bun, if you will, to today's activities was getting a better understanding of the analysis of an expense on a per item basis based on outside conditions. Example of that, if we go to the next slide, energy conditions kind of that affect energy increasing costs or even decreasing costs that affect our internal project costs, because these are tied at the hip. Making accommodations for that on that level from a fuel perspective, how that affects equipment, how that affects our energy consumption drivers and our costs, making those changes so that we really can get a better understanding and we're not 35% off at the end of the project. And if we go to the next one, this is the one we had a bunch of questions on too, which is cool that let this happen, which is outside currency conditions. So if we have an impact on a drastic increase in a currency, a fluctuation that goes way up or way down, making that change and then seeing what the immediate impact is really on the schedule, on the project, not just this year, but also long-term for a 5-year or a 10-year projects. And I mean, in the case of a shutdown, even if it's in that period of next year, if it's planned, how that impacts us when the estimate is already done. And then if we go to the next one, this helps us do what? Well, it helps us, when we understand it, it helps us lock our supply so that from a steel, concrete, whatever perspective that we have that's driving it, we can hedge ourselves. We can help procurement make better decisions long term to drive the cost down by a better understanding of what our needs are, as this domino effect of just basically visibility comes into play on all of the pieces. If there are any other questions, just throw them in the chat. I think we've got a lot of people on, so I think we're probably just going to get the chat open. We'll go ahead and post this up. I'm looking at another question coming through. Does HD integrate with SAP like P3 or MS Projects? Yeah, so Hard Dollar is an SAP certified partner. SAP and Hard Dollar integrated from not only from a budget perspective, from Hard Dollar to SAP, but also from an SAP to Hard Dollar perspective as well on specific items. It's interesting because I actually was going to put up some of the touch points today to kind of cover those, but I wanted to stay in the theme of the outside influencers and how they impact the internal part of the project. But if you're interested and you want to see some of the touch points and you'd like to kind of learn more about, hey, what could I do for my ERP system? What can I do from SAP into Hard Dollar? What can I do from Hard Dollar into SAP? Just please shoot me a note up there, the ron.babbage@harddollar.com or Justin Murphy, and I'll send you the diagram and I'll kind of explain how those things work and what those touch points are and what we kind of focus on between ERP and the project cost management system. One person just asked, I don't recall ever seeing the earned value column. Is that new? And I don't think so. No, we've had that in there for a while. There's I don't know how many columns there are.
Well, yeah, probably Hard Dollar comes with a default name for all the columns in job tracking register, and
that could be.
You have the ability to rename any of those labels. So I renamed them to kind of the more standard, earned plan, budgeted cost work schedule, budgeted cost work performed. So you have that capability.
Awesome. If there aren't any other questions, and if there are and our time goes over or whatever, just again, and you want a copy of the presentation, we'll send you out a link so you can download it, get some of the statistical data. If you're interested in seeing kind of the ERP integration stuff, which I think is pretty sexy and probably really interesting, send me a note and I'll forward that over to you, and you can see what that looks like and see how that fits into your world. It also applies to not just SAP, but from an Oracle perspective, JD Edwards, and other systems that are out there, these common budget to ERP touch points as well as ERP into the project cost management system. I really can't thank you enough. I mean, we're really grateful that you took some time out of the day to kind of join us today to go through this. If you have any suggestions for a future workshop, if you felt like, geez, I wish they would have talked about this some more, honestly, let us know. If you feel like we talked about something too much, let us know that too. If you feel like we talked too much, let us know that. Whatever your feedback is, just let me know, because we want to make these things better every month, and we appreciate kind of creating a little community, because I think that's how we'll get better at doing this. So thanks again for joining us today. Shoot us a note, give us your feedback, and have a great day, everybody. Thanks a lot.